For over a century, a hidden force has been woven into the very fabric of New York City, an invisible empire operating in the shadows, shaping the city's destiny in ways few could imagine. They weren't politicians or captains of industry in the traditional sense. They were known simply as the Five Families. Each had its own name, its own rules, and its own legacy: Genovese, Gambino, Lucchese, Bonanno, Colombo. These names still echo today, whispering tales of power, loyalty, and a secret order that governed the underworld. But to truly understand their story, we have to go back to the beginning. Our journey starts in the early 1900s. The air in New York was thick with the promise of a new life. As waves of immigrants arrived from Italy and Sicily, they brought with them hopes, dreams, and ancient traditions of loyalty and community. In the bustling, crowded neighborhoods of Little Italy and East Harlem, they sought to build new lives. Small groups formed, initially as a way to protect their own, to settle disputes, and to support one another in a strange new land. These weren't criminal enterprises at first. They were survival networks built on old world codes of honor and secrecy. But as these networks grew, so did the competition. The promise of wealth and influence turned allies into rivals. By the late 1920s, the streets of New York were a battleground. Factions clashed in a chaotic struggle for dominance, a period known as the Castellammarese War. The city was bleeding, and the old ways were failing. It was clear that this constant infighting was destructive and unsustainable. A new vision was needed, and it came from a young, ambitious leader who would change everything: Charles Lucky Luciano. Luciano was a pragmatist, a modern thinker in an old-world game. He saw that the endless cycle of violence was bad for business and bad for everyone. He envisioned something different: not chaos, but order; not war, but cooperation. He proposed a radical idea: to create a structured, organized system that would bring stability to New York's underworld. His plan was brilliant in its simplicity. He helped divide the sprawling, warring factions into 5 distinct, organized families. Each family would have its own defined territory, its own leadership structure, and its own autonomy. But they wouldn't operate in isolation. At the heart of this new order was a revolutionary concept: the Commission. This was a corporate-style board of directors, a council where the heads of the major families would have a seat at the table. Its purpose? To mediate disputes, approve new ventures, set rules, and maintain a peaceful balance of power. It was a government for the underworld. Luciano's new order transformed the landscape overnight, replacing bloody conflict with a remarkably stable and efficient system that would endure for generations. With this new structure in place, the 5 families began to solidify their unique identities and carve out their empires. The Genovese family, often called the Ivy League of the mob, became known for its incredible discipline, intelligence, and deep-seated secrecy. They were masters of operating behind the scenes, rarely seeking the spotlight, but wielding immense influence. Their power was quiet, but it was absolute. Then there was the Gambino family. Under leaders like Carlo Gambino, they rose to become one of the most powerful and recognizable crime families in American history. They were known for their sophisticated organization and their ability to blend into the legitimate world. The Gambinos built an empire that stretched from the docks to the garment district, becoming a symbol of the mob's reach and influence. The Lucchese family carved out its niche through strategic thinking and a keen eye for business. They were known for their focus on long-term, lucrative ventures, moving into industries where they could establish a lasting foothold. They were the innovators, always looking for the next opportunity and building a reputation for being shrewd and forward-thinking. Meanwhile, the Bonanno family stood as a bastion of old-world tradition, guided by a strong adherence to Sicilian codes of loyalty and honor. They were one of the most tight-knit and insular of the five. For decades, they were seen as a model of stability, their heritage and strict internal rules defining their identity. And finally, the Colombo family. Emerging from an older faction, they would forge their own distinct identity through decades of internal power struggles and changes. They were resilient, often weathering storms that would have torn other organizations apart, and they maintained their place as one of the original five through sheer tenacity. For most of the 20th century, these families operated in the shadows, their influence seeping into the very foundations of the city. They weren't just running back alley rackets. They were involved in major industries, construction, trucking, waste management, labor unions, and countless other enterprises. They became a hidden layer of the city's economy, blurring the lines between legitimate business and the underworld. Their true power wasn't just about intimidation, it was about structure and adaptation. They understood that to survive, they had to remain invisible. When law enforcement pressure mounted, they became quieter, their operations more discreet. When a powerful leader was removed, a successor was already in line, ensuring the organization continued without missing a beat. This was their genius, building an organization based on a clear hierarchy, unwavering loyalty, and a patient, long-term strategy. Fame was a liability, silence was an asset, but no empire lasts forever. By the 1980s and 1990s, the tide began to turn. The federal government, armed with powerful new laws like the RICO Act, launched an unprecedented assault on organized crime. High-profile prosecutions and informant testimonies began to dismantle the once impenetrable wall of silence. One by one, powerful bosses and soldiers were brought to justice, and the network that had seemed unshakable for half a century began to weaken. The golden era was over. The five families, once a dominant force, saw their power and influence dramatically decline. But even in their twilight, they remained symbols of incredible endurance. They were organizations built to survive, to adapt, and to rebuild, even in the face of overwhelming opposition. Today, the five families are a shadow of their former selves. Their grip on New York City has faded, replaced by new challenges and a different world. But their legacy is etched into the history of the city, immortalized in books, movies, and the very folklore of America. They are no longer the hidden power they once were, but their story remains one of the most compelling and fascinating chapters in modern urban history. From Luciano's visionary quest for order to the decades of silent, structured control, the five families fundamentally changed the nature of power in New York. Their story teaches us a powerful lesson. Influence doesn't always need a public stage or a loud voice. Sometimes, the most enduring empires are the ones built in silence, held together by structure, loyalty, and patience. The world has changed, but the legend of the five families remains a timeless saga of ambition, order, and the hidden currents that shape our world. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into New York's hidden history. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the stories that lie just beneath the surface. We'll see you in the next one.